All right, all right. I see people are still coming in, but I wanted to extend a big warm welcome for those of you that are already here. I want to welcome all the attendees and panelists. We thank you so much for coming together with us today to reimagine our campus, to discuss our efforts for intersectional environmental sustainability at Fullerton College. This webinar is the third of a series of webinars discussing the future in a time of crisis, a time when the social and environmental perils of our world are being highlighted, and in many ways exacerbated by the coronavirus pandemic. More than ever, this is a time for change beyond imagination. I join you today from the historical homelands of Indigenous peoples. Fullerton College stands on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Tongva and Achiman nations. We respect the resilience, strength, and survival of their descendants and relatives, past, present, and emerging. As we move forward in conversations about environmental sustainability, we must center the voices of the ancestors of this land who have practiced sustainable stewardship for millennia and continue to battle in the front lines for environmental protection. We pay our respects beyond acknowledgement in solidarity with their fight for visibility and autonomy. In this webinar, we're going to open a discussion about efforts at Fullerton College in carving a world we wish to see, and how we are beginning to materialize that within our own campus. You will hear from three groups working on environmental sustainability, starting with the Students for Equitable Sustainability and the AS Committee on the Environment, and then later the Sustainability Committee.
Tape to the front door.
I now invite Students for Equitable Sustainability and the AS Committee on the Environment to join us. So we have, in representation of the students today, we have Alejandra Avila. You can say hi, there she is. She's a geography major here at Fullerton College. We have Emily Duell, who's an environmental science major. We will also have the virtual presence of, even more virtual because Chad is not here today, but I do have a video greeting from him, Chad Becker, who is a geography major and the chair of the Students for Equitable Sustainability. We have Carolee Ellis. She is a Fullerton College alumna, and she's been part of all of the three bodies here and was our Student of Distinction 2020. So welcome, thanks for coming back and joining us. I will start with Alejandra.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alejandra Avila. I'm a student at both Fullerton College and Cal State Fullerton. I'm majoring in geography, and I'm here to talk to you about students and environmental sustainability. So while taking my general education classes, I enrolled in environmental biology and environmental geography. Both of those classes taught me about the environmental crisis, and they ultimately got me motivated to make personal changes to combat it. Excuse me, my dog's barking. So since then, I've grown to realize that there is a great majority of concerned students nationally, and studies show that the younger generations like the millennials and Generation Z, they truly care about environmental sustainability. There's a study according to Yale program on the climate change communication. It states 70% of adults in the US age 18 to 34 say that they worry about global warming, compared to 56% of those age 55 or older. So not only does a large percentage of young adults believe that global warming is happening, they also believe that it's caused by humans. There's data from the Pew Research Center that reveals that young adults in the US, both Democrats and Republicans, believe that the production of renewable energy should be prioritized by the government. And according to the United Nations Foundation, 92% of millennials and Generation Z are most willing to donate money, sign an online petition, join local community organizations in support of a cause. and they're willing to either purchase or boycott certain products. So the Carbon Disclosure Project recently published a report that identified that 100 companies have been responsible for 71% of all industrial emissions. A lot of these companies are food and beverage companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Kellogg, to name just a few. Since then, or since this has been revealed, many young adults have started campaigning against these companies, especially on social media, subsequently boycotting the purchase of their products. So we're seeing a larger percentage of younger age groups that are more concerned than their elders. And one explanation to this statement is that the younger generations are going to college in droves and subsequently getting educated on climate change. And for the Generation Z members who aren't there yet, they still have access to a multitude of educational resources through the internet, and especially with streaming services like Hulu, Netflix, even Disney Plus. They all allow anyone who has those subscription services to access documentaries like educational series, docuseries, outside of the classroom and inside of their home. So in addition to higher education, younger generations are conscious of how their consumption affects the planet. This includes your diet, waste, materialistic items. So what is it that we're eating? Like, how much trash are we getting rid of? How often do we buy the clothes that we wear? So through college and even social media, we're becoming aware of how our lifestyles are negatively affecting people, animals, the environment in other places on the planet. So in regards to our diet, we know that about a quarter of our methane emissions comes from mass-produced livestock. And a way to combat that is to reduce meat and animal byproduct consumption. And I know it's very much easier said than done, but now that vegan and plant-based lifestyles are becoming somewhat of a trend, they're driving sales in grocery stores. So we're finding more meatless options there. And because of this, the younger generations have a record share of vegetarians and vegans. And I personally am not vegan, but I have been watching my meat and dairy consumption. I've been actively seeking meatless and dairy-free alternatives as a way to reduce my ecological footprint. And another important way I'm trying to reduce my ecological footprint is by limiting my single waste consumption. So for example, I've been purchasing like bars of soap, shampoo, conditioner. They have no packaging waste. I store it like in a tin box. And when I'm ready to refill, I just place it in that tin box. It eliminates plastic that I'm just going to throw away anyways. So ultimately, I'm trying to avoid purchasing those products that come in plastic packaging or has excess packaging that just goes to a landfill. And another way to reduce waste consumption is to purchase items secondhand or just take better care of what you already have and maximize its lifetime. So for clothing, thrift stores have been around long before millennials have been born. But now we have these stores online. You can purchase vintage or secondhand items, nearly anywhere in the world. So something that I've been doing, thrifting's a little hard sometimes, but I've been knitting my own clothes and I'm wearing something I made myself. And I know it's hard to learn, everything. It's fun though. It's really therapeutic and it's time consuming, but it's worth it. So although I'm not fully zero waste, I'm not sure that I ever will be. I have faith in these small lifestyle changes. They'll make some impact when done in mass efforts. So in conclusion, millennials and Generation Z are the driving forces behind positive environmental change. We may not be there yet, but we are eager and motivated, and we're going to continue to fight for our planet. So thank you for having me today. I'm going to hand off the Zoom square to Emily.
All right. Hi, everyone. I guess just a little introduction on to who I am. I'm Emily Duell, and I am the Secretary of Students for Equitable Sustainability, or SES for short. Today, what I'm going to talk about is going to be intersectional environmentalism. Just a brief background about what that is environmentalism that shows the connection between marginalized communities, predominantly people of color, and the earth, and how both of them face injustices essentially on the daily. The first example that I would like to give is going to be from an article called Racist Housing Policies Have Created Some Oppressively Hot Neighborhoods by Alejandra Borduna. And what it showcases inside of that article is the extremely hot differences between temperatures in non-red line communities versus temperatures in red line communities, and just a bit of a background as well on what red line communities are. It was a historically racist way to segregate new homeowners and loners when trying to find a house. So every neighborhood was graded and every neighborhood was given a shade to outline it. And if it was a really good neighborhood, it was shaded green. If it was quote unquote hazardous, it was shaded red. And if one African-American family moved into a neighborhood, it was automatically redlined. So even though this was put into place years ago, back in like the 30s, and some of it didn't even stop until 1968 when there was an act placed against it, these neighborhoods still face inequalities and injustices today. For example, the heat differences. So on average, they see a 4.75 degree Fahrenheit hotter temperatures than a city without, or not a city, but a neighborhood that is not redlined. The worst amongst that statistic is going to be Portland, Oregon, with a heat difference of 12.8 degrees Fahrenheit. So with that being said, a lot of the causes of this comes from an immense amount of concrete or asphalt rather than trees and shade that reflect sunlight. There is more factories, there's more freeways, just a lot more toxins in the area that essentially dampen the health of the community members. A second part, or a second example of intersectional environmentalism, I'm going to talk about Native peoples living in the Arctic all around the world. And an article that I would like to kind of, I guess, pay respect to is Climate Change in the Arctic and Inuit Reality. I found that on the UN's website. It goes into depth about the challenges that all the native peoples above the Arctic Circle face around the world, from invasive species to vanishing historical sites, graveyard site erosions. There's restrictions to access of food and medication. And then also for all of these people to live on these lands that they once passed down generational knowledge from, to continue trying to live the way that they once have and how their ancestors once have, considering the massive amounts of changes that are happening. So with that being said, how that interconnects with what we want to do on campus and what we see fit through SES, we do like to take a lot of action against these sort of things, but I will pass it on to the video of Chad to give a bit more explanation.
Thank you so much, Emily. So Emily is leading, together with Chad, she's leading an organization that tackles environmentalism with these intersections with social justice. So I'm gonna show a video of Chad Becker, who leads this club with her, telling you more.
What's up, everyone? My name is Chad, and I'm Chair of Students for Equitable Sustainability, also known as SES. Being a part of SES has been one of my favorite experiences at Fullerton College. When I first joined, I was amazed by the group of student activists. They welcomed me with open hearts, and we shared our thoughts and knowledge on various topics revolving around social and environmental issues and ways we could make a difference in the world. Each member shared something unique to their life experience, making our conversation circles one of the most well-rounded ways to learn. Students in SES range from environmental science majors to philosophy majors, but one thing we all have in common is our goal to create a more compassionate society centered around human rights and sustainability. SES focuses on creating awareness and action around environmental and social injustices within our society. Our conversation circles in the quad prepare us to share our thoughts with wider audiences, such as when we hosted a conversation circle about universal human rights for the Earth Day Symposium. We believe that having important discussions is one huge way to create a more just world. Our action-oriented events involve participating in a wide range of volunteer opportunities, as well as finding ways we can educate ourselves. One event that we participated in is the Toxic Tour, a tour of some of LA's cities that are experiencing environmental racism. For me, the Toxic Tour was a profound experience because we connected with people who were using their voices to make change within their community. As our club progresses, we are always looking for new ways to contribute to our local communities through action. Having said that, SES wants you to join now. Our group is full of wonderful, like-minded individuals looking to battle social and environmental injustice. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, let us know and we'd love to have you. Thanks for listening and good luck this semester. Peace.
All right. That was Chad. I will go ahead and also introduce and invite Carolee Ellis to talk a little bit about the AS Committee on the Environment.
Hello, thank you. I'm so happy to be here back with my Fullerton College folks. So hello everyone, my name is Carolee Ellis. I'm a Fullerton College alumna, and I'm currently attending UC Berkeley, majoring in society and environment. I am the previous chair of the Associated Students Committee on the Environment, and so that's what I am here to talk to you guys about today. One of the many great things about getting involved in Associated Students is the ability to implement change that will last years beyond, your time at Fullerton College. So for example, I worked on the first ever board policy recommendation for sustainability on campus. And that's going to have lasting effects well beyond just the 2 years that I actually spent on campus. You can partner with other committees on campus, of course, like the Sustainability Committee, or even research, planning, and resolutions, also through Associated Students to get items passed. One huge accomplishment that we had with Associated Students was the Fullerton Rights Free Bus Program that offered free public transportation to students, benefiting the students and the planet. And you can also work with clubs on campus, like Students for Equitable Sustainability, to drive activism and awareness on campus by tabling, doing workshops like they spoke about. And that was really my favorite part about being on the Committee on the Environment, was the ability to really be a bridge between the front-facing kind of grassroots student activism that you can really see happening on campus, but still working behind the scenes to get things done that'll, again, have those long-term formal actions, that you get to work on with faculty, classified staff, and even the Board of Trustees sometimes. And, all of this combination of things really helps prioritize sustainability on campus. And, there's good and bad in every situation. And currently with the situation of sustainability on campus is that we are a little bit behind compared to other campuses, but I really don't even see that as a negative aspect, because that means we have the advantage to learn from these campuses, to avoid their mistakes, adopt their best practices. They've already really done the dirty work for us, and we've already made so much progress on campus in the last year or two, especially with the Sustainability Committee, as they'll tell you in just a minute. But yeah, so SES, the Committee on the Environment, the Sustainability Committee, all of them have driven so much change in such a short amount of time that it's really something to be proud of looking back on. But especially right now when the ball is rolling so quickly, it's so important for students to get involved. And I really think that through the Committee on the Environment and through Associated Students is the best way to do that. There's endless amounts of resources, support, and especially opportunities right now to implement so much positive change on campus. To make those recommendations, write those resolutions, and campaign the student-led initiatives that will have those long-lasting effects after you've transferred. And you can really look back and really be proud of your time at Fullerton College.
Awesome. Thank you, Carolee. And I encourage all the participants to use the Q&A. We will be taking questions at the end. And I encourage you to ask, the students about how to get involved or any other questions that come up. We will try to address all of them or most of them. I will go ahead and now introduce you to the Sustainability Committee. With us today, we have Lisa McFerrin, who is the Director of Campus Communications. We have Megan Moscow, who is our accredited sustainability professional, assistant project manager and the co-chair of the Sustainability Committee. We have Joshua Ashton Miller, history professor, Sergio Banda, sociology professor, Larry Lara, the director of facilities, Jennifer Merchant, program coordinator of internship and workforce, and me, Alini Gregorio, professor of geography and the co-chair of the Sustainability Committee. I will share a PowerPoint here with you, and just a moment. Sorry, sometimes this takes a little bit. Okay. And I will go ahead and begin and invite Lisa to talk about sustainability in higher ed.
Hi, thank you for having me today. I just want to thank to Alejandra, Emily, Carolee, and Chad via video. It's very nice to hear our students, and the thoughts and the research that you went into your statements is really appreciated. Students are what I miss the most working remotely right now. And so even though this is remote still, I love hearing what you have to say and the leadership that you're providing on this topic. So I am by no means an expert on sustainability. I'm the director of campus communications for Fullerton College. However, I'm very passionate about sustainability. And it's a pleasure to join the conversation to help advance development from a wide variety of angles that we can do in higher education to support and enhance the understanding of sustainability, sustainable practices. I believe, and I preface this again, I'm not an expert on sustainability. I'm sure Alini could add so much more to this here, but I think that it's important to consider sort of three main pillars why I believe sustainability is so, why higher education is so important to sustainability. And first, it's the landscape in which people are educated. And there is an interdisciplinary approach to sustainability that crosses across so many different disciplines that leads to, your basic level social awareness so people can adopt practices in their personal lives to live sustainably. It also has a very practical impact on preparing a future workforce for green collar jobs. I doubt there's any climate change deniers in this room. And it's this reality that we're facing, that our environment is changing and steps need to be taken to prepare people to join industries that will help combat climate change. There's no other place but higher education to kind of create that foundation of knowledge from which to spring into these careers. So, main pillar is just educating people creating a future workforce. Also, a second pillar is research. So science drives our understanding of climate change. The best unbiased science is coming from higher education institutions. Peer-reviewed research can lead to making decisions and actions that can help us respond to create better sustainable practices. And then a third pillar is, I'm going to be very local to Fullerton College. We're like a small city. We're the third or the second largest employer in the city of Fullerton. I think we're the third. We're behind Cal State Fullerton and St. Jude Medical Center. Our buying power is tremendous, just in the amount of stuff that we need to run our college. There's so much great work that's being done that you're going to hear from Megan and Larry that kind of shows you how the operational way we run our college is vital in showing demonstrations of support to sustainability. And so as we're figuring out how to run a college, doing it through the lens of sustainability is not only important to our environment, which we all want to, we are all worried about future generations and their place on this planet, but it also demonstrates that we're practicing what we're teaching. I think it's really worth emphasizing. We know that California is a leader in green measures through legislation to protect our environment. We have state agencies that have done tremendous work to reduce pollution in our state. I mean, shout out to the State Air Resources Board, where my brother works. I mean, I grew up in San Gabriel Valley, and I lived maybe 5 miles from the foothills, and we had smog alerts. I couldn't see Mount Baldy from my backyard on some days, and you just don't have that level of pollution anymore. And that came from intentional legislation and investing in regulation. So you've got this like great kind of regulation in California. And then you have these giant education systems. The California Community College system with our 115 schools is the largest community college system in the world. And, coupled with other, our UC system, our Cal State system, wonderful, private colleges as well. We have this environment in California that had this wonderful higher education system that can generate the research, can train people for this important new workforce. And so it's kind of a really best of both worlds. And I'm trying, am I okay on time, Alini? Am I okay? All right. I used to work at Cal Poly Pomona, which sustainability is embraced throughout the whole university. And I got to witness what it was like to work in an environment that kind of understood the interdisciplinary importance of sustainability. I was the director of communications and external relations at the Hospitality College. That doesn't seem like it would have any connection whatsoever to sustainability, but all of our practices were done through a lens of sustainability. So when I printed a magazine, I did it on, I used all sustainable printing materials. Our student-run restaurant, this is 10 years ago, they were already figuring out that straws were dangerous for the environment, and they were making purchasing decisions based on using sustainable materials. We were talking about farm to fork and farming practices and partnering with the agriculture college. And it was just very, it was how we thought and how we did our work was through a sustainability lens. And I think that we're beginning to do that more intentionally at Fullerton College, and I'm really proud about that. A lot of great progress has been made in the last few years. I'm encouraged even by having these kinds of conversations. With that, I think I've talked too much. I want to introduce our next speaker, Megan Moskal. So Megan is a wonderful ally on our campus because she comes with real credentials. Like, she knows what she is doing. As an assistant project manager, she's overseeing major construction projects on our campus. She's a specialist in sustainable design and construction and operations and maintenance. And so I can kind of talk as the director of communications, but she's actually like boots on the ground making all this stuff happen operationally. So I hand it over to you, Megan.
Thanks, Lisa. That was an incredible introduction to sustainability in higher ed in California and across the country, and really like our opportunities to participate and how some of our sister colleges and universities in the area are participating as well. And I'm so grateful. It's been so great working with you, and we miss you in the community. I can see Alini there too. So my name is Megan Muskell. My background is in sustainable design and construction. So when people refer to me as an accredited professional, I've worked over a decade in making the buildings that we occupy more sustainable, as well as a specialty in higher education. I was the 2017 system-wide sustainability champion for the CSU. And was awarded at the California Higher Ed Sustainability Conference in Santa Barbara for my work at Cal State Fullerton, which is where I worked prior to coming here to Fullerton College. So we in California are so uniquely positioned to take a leadership role in sustainability. I have worked even in South America on sustainability, and where we are really is sustainability is embedded in the fabric of so much of what we do that we get to start in a really good place, because things like permitting and energy requirements, anytime you step foot in a new building that's just been constructed on campus or even been constructed in the last 10 years, you can be pretty confident that because of the requirements of the state of California alone, your building is more energy efficient, more water efficient, has a better indoor environmental quality than almost anywhere else in the United States and indeed in the world. So we are so lucky from that perspective. And as everyone has said, and I will echo, there's so much more opportunity for us. We have such an excellent foundation, and there are so many incredible practices being pioneered in the state of California, as well as being established and refined in the state of California. We have such great resources that are so accessible to us here, that when people talk about us, being able to take this kind of great leap forward by using the best practices of the colleges and universities and higher ed that have come before us, not only do we have, and you can see this is a really verbose slide because it contains the foundation that we're taking off from. Like, this is all the policy that supports sustainability, not just in the state, but also in higher education. Most recently, the adopted energy and sustainability policy at the California Community College Board of Governors, which was accepted last year in May. So a new updated policy. The Sustainability Committee on our campus is relatively new comparatively. So you'll see 2008 is when the community colleges first passed sustainability policy. So there are some colleges in our states that have been doing sustainability for at least 10, 12, maybe even longer years, depending on how quickly they adopted that policy from the chancellor's office. We may be a little bit on the backside of that curve, but we have the opportunity now to leverage all that accumulated knowledge, all of those resources, and the strength of the professionals, the research, and even the other students that have been kind of pioneering in this field. So as a sustainability committee, we were formed April of 2019. That was when we first had a meeting. And since that time, we have moved forward really quickly to evaluate the gaps and opportunities in our district-wide policy as well as our campus. And where we wanted to start was by evaluating what we're already doing and doing really well. And then where we can support those efforts, what we can do to support those efforts. And part of that is generating a sustainability plan. So there are a number of different ways that you can go about a plan. Again, we wanted to move forward in a way that empowers stakeholders to really own sustainability efforts in their areas. So we determined fairly quickly that our district is one of the few in our region that did not yet have a formalized sustainability board policy. And so we worked both with the board and with stakeholder groups on campus and in the region to develop a policy that could be adopted by the board and then used as a foundation and a guideline and a support for constituents that would like to move forward with sustainability. And very recently, the Presidential Advisory Committee agreed to move the proposed policy forward, the policy that was put forth by the Sustainability Committee to the district level. And that's currently in evaluation at the district level. So very shortly, we could have our own sustainability policy. And part of that is to develop campus-wide plans. So when we're developing a campus-wide plan, we want it, again, to empower campus stakeholders to evaluate their areas and move forward with sustainability practices that make sense and support the overall vision of sustainability for the campus. And I am about to hand off to Josh Aschenmiller, who is faculty in history and former faculty senate president, who has been very involved in governance at all levels of our district and is going to tell you a little bit more about the preferred method or the method approved or identified by the Sustainability Committee to collect data on sustainability on campus and create a plan to move forward. So Josh, with that, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, Megan. So yes, I'm going to talk to you about stars, and fortunately everyone can see on the slide, so I don't have to spell it out for you. But before I get to that, I want to tell a personal story. I am a historian, so I believe in the power of narrative. And I'll tell you a little bit about my narrative. My very first day officially on campus at Fullerton College was in the fall of 2006. I might have even been wearing a tie. It was a very rare day indeed in my life. And there might be some old timers on the panel or in the audience who might remember Convocation Day, which is the first day for faculty really, back in 2006. This is before Flex Day. And a convocation is kind of a little get-together faculty all have. It's sort of like a pep rally, get ready for the semester to start. And usually it's in the campus theater, but this year was the year that the Lemon Street parking structure opened. And so convocation was actually held in the parking structure. They set up folding chairs, there was coffee, there were donuts, we were all sitting around chatting, and then there were speakers, and we had convocation in the parking structure. So that was my introduction to Fullerton College. And I remember sitting there listening to all the speakers and munching a donut and thinking to myself, this is horrible. What are we doing? Don't we realize that cars are killing all of us? Like, why do we want to build more parking spots? Then I sat there a little bit longer and thought to myself, well, we're not exactly a residential campus, and our students have to get here some way. So if they don't have enough places to park, they're going to go someplace else. So maybe this makes a certain amount of sense. And then, of course, in the 15 years since then, it's no longer necessarily the case that our cars are killing us. Some cars are electric, some cars are plug-in hybrids, right? There's a whole revolution going on in how people, transport themselves to and from school, to and from work. And we need to have some way to get to sort of wrap our arms around all the data that's going on at our college. Lisa McFerrin talked about this a few minutes ago. We're like a small city. Like we have cars coming and going, buses coming and going. We're using a lot of water. We're using a lot of energy. We're having a big carbon footprint. We need some way of getting our arms around all that data before we can start making decisions on how to make it more sustainable. And as Kara Lee mentioned a few minutes ago, fortunately, we're not inventing the wheel here. There is this program that was begun by the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. So in other words, lots and lots of other colleges and universities have developed systems for being more sustainable, and they share this through the STARS program. They've created a program by which campuses like ourselves that are just starting out can start getting their arms around the data and then figuring out how to allocate resources and make decisions. And we've been doing this sort of off and on and episodically. The college has been making some great strides in sustainability. My favorite one, again, just to talk about parking spaces, that Lemon Street parking structure now has 8 electric vehicle charging stations. And by the time we all wind up back on campus, there's going to be 50 electric vehicle charging stations, right? So we're definitely making progress, and STARS is going to help us look at everything at the same time and be able to publicize our victories, identify our problems, and really attack this, in a rational, systematic way, the way so many other colleges and universities have. The map that Professor Gregorio has just put up for us shows all the colleges and universities in Southern California that already have sustainability plans, and many of them are already using the STARS method for doing that. So the task of the Sustainability Committee is to make the case to the district and make the case to the college that we need to really adopt this STARS framework to help us get caught up with our peers, obviously, but also just start being able to not just talk about, well, wouldn't this be great? Oh, wouldn't it be great if we had a garden? Wouldn't it be great if everybody rode an electric skateboard to school? Like, instead of just talking about stuff like that, we can actually make, concrete, solid recommendations that show the carbon offsets, that show the cost benefit analysis, because that's what you really need to get policy to change, to get budgets to change. And that's what we're really excited about doing. So we'll be making this slideshow available, I believe. If you're unfamiliar with the acronym STARS, you can look it up and find out more about it. But right now, I think it's my turn to turn things over to my faculty colleague in the sociology department, Professor Sergio Banda. Sergio, it's your turn.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sergio Banda. I'm in the sociology department, as Josh just mentioned. And I just want to say that it's so exciting to see not only faculty, but also individuals from different organizations or different offices and different departments all coming together, and especially students. Right before we began, Alini was talking about how exciting it is to see such a diverse group of people with different ideas and different backgrounds. So to hear the enthusiasm we've heard so far from especially our students. I don't know her personally, but Alejandra, for example, Carly also, that was so gracious and so generous to actually come back, even though she's no longer with Fullerton College anymore, is very contagious. Wait, I shouldn't use the word contagious too soon. Anyway, one of the things that I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about, let me couch this under, yes, there are many things that we have yet to do. And yes, there are some areas where we are probably lagging behind, but I want to maintain some sort of positivity to what we're doing. And we are doing things. Keep in mind that we've only started recently, as was mentioned by Megan recently. What was it, April of 2019, the first meeting that we had. So what are some of the things that we're doing? Well, among other things, we understand the importance of having, bringing awareness in an educational way, in an educational form to our students. Although our students, as was mentioned earlier, when it comes to their interest in anything related to environmental issues and the environmental crisis that we're in the middle of and is expected to get worse, they already know a lot. The interest is already there. But I think we also have the responsibility to provide the educational component in an empirical way. What is science saying? So what we've done is we've created some classes that meet the STARS approach that Josh was talking about. And so far we have some academic classes that are really not only influential, but definitely the beginning of hopefully what we'll see in the future. Now, these classes include global environmental problems, as you can see here on the slides, climate science, as well as environmental biology, to name a few. Our goal is to get more departments involved so that they can actually develop curriculum that either is sustainability focused or sustainability inclusive, one of those two. And by the way, again, just to maybe sounding a little redundant, make sure that it meets the STARS criteria. Now, another component that is really, really exciting is the fact that students are very involved and very interested in being part of this. And of course, we can't do this without the students. The students are the essential component and one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. So far, they've actually done some wonderful things. And Carly already mentioned, for example, the AS committee that is very involved in environmental and bringing awareness to environmental issues, to the environmental crisis, and so on. But additionally, we also have participated in Earth Day. And the last Earth Day was, the main focus was to connect COVID-19 with the environmental crisis that we're facing right now. So my guess is that we're going to be just expanding on that and being involved in every aspect of anything that has to do with sustainability. Lastly, another piece of good news I want to talk about just briefly about Buzzy Bites, which right now, I'm not sure if they're doing anything with this, but Buzzy Bites is essentially an app that students have access to. And there are many times, unfortunately, that maybe we produce a lot more than we consume and we throw away. So we want to get away from that. That's, polar opposite of sustainability. So what this app allows is for students to become aware when there is an excess of food that hasn't been consumed, and they can actually pick up the food and that way avoid or reduce waste. In closing, I just want to say that we are moving in the right direction. There's a lot of excitement. This last piece right here, Buzzy Bites, I want to connect it to what Alejandra said, in which a lot of times we feel overwhelmed. There are so many areas of in this environmental crisis that we're facing, that we feel that what can I do, or what I do, does it really make a difference? My approach as well is just thinking, globally, but acting locally. The things that we can do, the few things that we can do collectively, definitely will have an impact. So thank you very much. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Larry Lara. And Alini, do you want to say a few things about Larry? You know his biography a little bit better than I do.
Yes, we are so happy to have Larry on board with us. He's the director of facilities, and he's helping us understand what is going on in the facility side, right? We haven't had much communication about the immense task of campus operations, right? Directing everything about the campus environment. And here we have your person, Larry, for that.
Thank you, Eleni, and thank you, Sergio. So this is always fun for me because our department doesn't typically engage with the students very often. So I'm always impressed to see what our students are doing out there and listening to them. I think we certainly have a very good future ahead of us. So I want to talk about things that we've already done or are doing to move the college in a sustainable direction. So let's start with construction. As a district, we passed ballot measure J a few years ago, which provides $570 million for new construction projects. If you include additional state funding, we'll have well over $600 million spent. That much construction has a big environmental impact. It's important to know that when we plan a new construction project, we do plan with sustainability in mind. Now, to put things in context, when we construct a new building or modify an existing building, the building design must comply with energy efficiency standards known as Title 24. And Megan touched on this a little. These California design standards are some of the strictest energy standards in the country. Just by designing to Title 24 standards, our construction meets what's called LEED silver level design. Now, as good as building to a LEED silver level design may be, as a district, we don't believe that's good enough. So we require buildings to be designed to exceed LEED silver energy efficiency standards by 15% for new buildings and 10% for existing buildings. In addition, as a customer of Southern California Edison, we also participate in Edison's Savings by Design incentive program in which we partner with Edison to look for more energy efficiencies in our designs. The added benefit of the program is that we also receive monetary incentives from Edison. Both the new central plant and our new instructional building are in the Savings by Design program. The takeaway is that we understand our building program has a major impact on our sustainable footprint. Our construction team works hard to ensure our buildings are energy efficient and green. As you've heard, that team includes Megan. Now, when it comes to our existing campus, we look for ways to reduce energy consumption. We start with lighting. So lighting is the single largest use of electricity in most buildings. Over the last 5 years, we've retrofitted or replaced over 6,427 bulbs and fixtures with LED lights. And we just wrapped up our last state-funded project, which will probably put that number well over 7,000. Now, LEDs use about 50% less energy than fluorescent and other types of lights. The result is an estimated reduction of over 1 million kilowatt hours of energy use annually. We've also made improvements to our cooling systems, which save another 250,000 kilowatt hours annually. But reducing energy consumption is not our only focus. Waste reduction is another. Our goal is to decrease the amount of waste we send to our landfills each year. We have a waste diversion program for paper, cardboard, and electronics, which divert almost 35 tons of waste alone. We've also made gains when it comes to water consumption. We've converted over 36,000 square feet of traditional landscaping to drought-tolerant plants and installed drip irrigation to reduce water use. We will continue that conversion process until we are complete across the campus. We look for sustainable improvements in our custodial operation as well. Our custodial team switched to new cleaning chemicals with a pre-mixing system that helps reduce chemical waste and overall use. With the exception of the disinfectant, all chemicals either have the UL Eco logo, which certify the product has a reduced environmental impact, or they have the green seal, which certifies the product has tangible reductions in the whole environmental footprint. Now, one of our more challenging areas is reducing our dependencies on fossil fuel vehicles. To do this, we have to change the way students and staff commute and the way we operate on campus. To encourage the use of clean vehicles, as Josh mentioned, we've installed electric vehicle charging stations. We're expanding the current number to 50 charging stations. The additional stations will be up and running in the next few weeks. We've also partnered with OCTA. Student fees now include an OCTA unlimited bus pass for each semester. We've seen a significant increase in student ridership and less vehicle trips to campus since the start of the program. We also have a campus fleet of light-duty electric carts our campus staff uses to get around campus. So we have had some success when it comes to sustainability. Next is Jennifer Merchant. Jennifer's going to talk about how these success stories translate into the STARS program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry. This is such an amazing session to be a part of. So now that we've talked about STARS and some of the great things that we're doing on the campus in the arena of sustainability, I'd like to take a moment to show you the big picture and how it all comes together. In this slide, you can see all of the STARS credits that are currently in the program. You can see there's so many that they barely fit on the page. STARS credits include academics. So for example, rethinking learning objectives and academic courses, operations, just like Larry was talking about with building design and also sustainable dining, engagement, including campus engagement and public engagement, planning and administration, including wellness programs and diversity and equity training. And in the innovation area, this is an opportunity where we have a chance to innovate and implement initiatives that are a step above the credits that you see here, and create innovative programs that we can develop on our own that aren't included in these credits. So there's so many possibilities. Well, the great news is that we're already doing a lot of these things as mentioned earlier. So Fullerton College, now that we have brought STARS into the mix, we can actually view STARS as a holistic measuring system to gauge ourselves against industry leaders and to benchmark each of these credit areas at Fullerton College. So as you heard earlier from our amazing students, Alejandra, Chad, and Carolee, there's a lot of engagement around sustainability at the Fullerton College campus. Also, we heard from Megan, who discussed the steps to develop and adopt a sustainability plan, which requires campus collaboration. In academic areas, Sergio talked about courses in geography, environmental sciences, and environmental biology. And he also talked about some other campus engagement activities, including Earth Day Symposium, higher education, sustainability conference, student and equitable sustainability, AS committee, and on the environment, and this very sustainability committee. He also talked about our innovation piece of it, which is Buzzy Bites. And Larry walked us through operations, including things like water use and cleaning and janitorial purchasing. So as you can see, there's so much that we've already done because we've come together as a team with campus leaders and to make these things possible. And with STARS and other leaders on campus, we can do so much more. Again, Fullerton College is using these credit areas to establish STARS benchmarks. And so to wrap up our chat here, I'm going to pass it over to Professor Gregorio.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. As you can see here, reimagining our campus is not so much about imagination, right? Because we do have a lot of leadership in the state of California in higher education, the STARS framework, right? So it's really like, yes, we often imagine like a more just, a more sustainable campus, right? But we do actually have a framework, and through data, through measuring where we are versus how sustainability is defined, right? We're not going to redefine the whole thing. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. As a campus community sustainability committee, the AS committee and the environment, Students for Equitable Sustainability, we can really begin to measure ourselves up to where we need to be. So little less about imagination and more about planning, right? More about planning and really seeing where we are at compared to where we want to go. Now I want to close this session with an important realization of the time and some of the things that Emily, Alejandra, Carolee shared. And I think, you know, centering a little bit about the importance of fear and hope in the things that we're trying to achieve. I think fear is omnipresent, especially in my discipline where I'm constantly analyzing the current state of the world, right? But also how hope and hopeful geographies, right? Spaces of hope, how that can really create a path forward. I think we understand hope as educators and students. Like if I can draw from my experience, Fullerton College was, you know, the place where I started as a college student. And I'll never forget having met Heather Halverson, who is a counseling professor here at Fullerton College, who was the first person with a master's degree that I had ever met. In my family, I come from a family of matriarcas, you know, women who did not finish high school. And I was one of the children that finished high school and college. And I remember the hope of seeing Heather and completely creating an imagination, right? And then reading and learning a new language, right? All of those things and how the exposure to those things helped me hope for myself. And I think if we translate that into space, I think what we often forget is how space in itself can speak hope, right? When we see something materialized in space, maybe coming to campus is a way that students overcome some of the things that Emily was talking about, coming from neighborhoods that don't have green spaces, coming from oppressively hot neighborhoods, right, into a vegetated campus, coming in and being exposed to ethnobotanical landscaping, right, where we learn about the heritage of the land. I think once we begin to view our campus as a space of hope, a space where we can see solutions implemented, a space where we can experiment with a pathway to the future, right? When we begin to see it that way as a kind of a leg of the anti-racism work that we are doing as a college, for example, thinking about all of the environmental inequities many of our students come from, and they land at Fullerton College, right? A place that can mirror and correct these environmental inequities with hopeful design. Yes. So I think I congratulate every single one that's part of this movement. I am happy to be part of this movement of creating a space that bring windows into a better future, a way for us to overcome the immense fear that we all feel with the climate crisis, with a world in crisis, right? And beginning rolling up our sleeves, not just to imagine, but to plan for a brighter future in our immediate campus. So I want to thank the Sustainability Committee, thank the students for being here. We had a productive hour, and we can now begin taking some of the questions here. Let me filter, let me take a look through here and see how we can answer these questions. And feel free to keep sending them to us. We have some time. Okay, so I have the first question here, and anyone can jump in as you see fit. So just, raise your hand and tackle it. So the first question is, how feasible would it be to go forward with a community garden in our campus, using what other campuses like CSUF have done as a reference? Anyone have an input on that?
So, Lainey, I can talk about that a little bit. We have looked into that, and I know that is the direction that we'd like to go. I think where we need to work is, where's the right location for that, and how do we manage that? And one of the things I've talked about before is probably the biggest challenge on this campus is just geography. We don't have a lot of space, and so again, where do we find the right location for that? So I know we've talked about it. It's just about revisiting that and finding the right location, and how do we manage it, because there are things to do when it comes to maintaining that area and making sure things grow. So that's where we stand.
I'd also add, creating partnerships is such an important dimension of that, because creating a partnership with the horticulture department in a way that it can be integrated into their program. This is conversations that we've had and have been disconnected, and we can revive again. But again, the thing about a garden or any effort that we do on the campus is that it needs to be institutionalized. Otherwise, it is short-lived. So it needs to be part of the very operation, the very, educational foundation of the campus. And once you see it that way, you can begin, like Larry was saying, seeing the challenges of materializing that. But I do believe making connections is a one step forward, and engaging the folks that need to be engaged, like the horticulture department, would be a great start. Okay, so the next question is, how do you join the Committee on the Environment Club? Maybe I can have Carolee differentiate between the AS Committee on the Environment and CES.
Yeah, so the Committee on the Environment, that is going to be a little bit more formal. If you want to get involved in that, you can go to the Associated Students website and join. That's going to be as.fullcall.edu. And from there is a join tab, and you can fill out an application to become a senator. That would be the first step. It looks a little bit more intimidating than it actually is, so just go ahead with the application and submit it. And then the president of Associated Students will follow up with you. And then from there, once you're a senator, you can join the Committee on the Environment. And what you do on that committee is going to be dependent on what you guys decide are the projects that you want to work on. And so my recommendation for that is pick a project or two and run with it, because again, students are only there for so long, and so you can't put too much on your plate. You want to really focus on specific things to get done. And then Students for Equitable Sustainability, that is the student club on campus. And to get involved with them, you can email them at fullcallsess@gmail.com. Oh wait, sorry. It's
I think
yeah,
you're right. I think it is full courses. Emily, can you give us a word about joining SCS?
Yeah, so exactly what she said, fullcallsess@gmail.com. Just email us. Yeah, I see it in the, there's 2 L's in full call though. Yeah, just send us over an email and then I'll touch base with you because I'm the one primarily in charge of that, and it's pretty good stuff.
Oh, so 2 L's. I'm sorry, I misspelled it wrong twice. Also, they have an Instagram. So if you're an Instagram person, it is the same as full courses. You know, that's the username. Okay. The next question is curious about how Alejandra mentioned that she has been attempting not to buy plastic products. I was wondering where she gets her products from, because I've been trying to do the same. Can you shed some light on that, Alejandra?
Yeah, absolutely. I have been purchasing items from Lush for a while now, and for me, it's easier to be able to go into the store and just take it home. But there are a lot of different, there are different companies. There's this one, they're called No Tox Life, that's TOX, and they have their products in stores. There's a lot, I think, in LA. I mean, it's a little weird right now with COVID, but basically you can go there and you can bring, if you have even like an old shampoo bottle, you can go and refill shampoo into an old bottle. So whenever I get products like just random little things that come like in a glass container, I save it so that I can get, lotion or shampoo, conditioner, anything like that. Also for like personal care products, I have been looking for vegan deodorant. So I've bought from this company called Myro. It's MYRO, and it's still plastic component, but it's refillable deodorant, and it's aluminum free and vegan. And then just for like household products, there's a great brand called Blue Life, and they basically have a set where you can purchase like bottles for window cleaner, household cleaner, dish soap, and everything's refillable. They sell like tablets or powder that you can just refill into either their bottles, or you can have your own that you could just reuse. So those are just little ways that you can implement those changes in your house.
That is awesome. I'm going to look all of that up. That is great. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, one more question. I have several more, but let's keep going here. We have what would be the ramifications of installing solar panels on at least some of the buildings on campus?
All right, I'll take that one too. So we have looked at installing solar panels around campus. And one of the things you need when it comes to solar panels is you need space. And as I mentioned, space is limited here. So ultimately, you can put them on roofs, or you can put them in parking areas, since we have no open space. The parking areas that are significant enough to put some solar farms, we actually have some future uses. Lots 4 and 5 near Sherbeck Field. And so unfortunately, we can't put anything there right now because those areas are going to be used for future construction. We don't have many roofs to put them on because if you look at the style of our buildings, we've got tile roofs, so there isn't a lot of space to put them on roofs. The one place we can put it on is our parking structure. So we did look at that recently, And it looks like we may be able to put them on our parking structure. So that is something we're looking to do in the future. And the last component of that, of course, is funding. So we do have this major construction program. We don't have anything set aside for solar installation, but we are looking to do some things like that in the future, along with some other things, like we're looking at installing a thermal energy storage tank, which again will reduce our cost for making our chilled water for our HVAC systems. So we are looking at a lot of different things, including the solar panels.
Thank you. Thank you. Have you seen those solar tiles?
I have, yes. They're
Are
very.
they extremely expensive, huh?
They are. They're extreme. I actually saw them on a house, and they say where a typical house re-roof can be $10,000 to $20,000. The tile roof with the solar panels is about $150,000. So the difference in cost is, at least at this point in time, is significant. So hopefully in the future that comes down.
Yes. Hopefully we'll start seeing more improvement in the
Right.
price. Okay, so another question. Is there any campus funding to help us move our areas into more sustainable practices?
I'm not sure any of us can answer that to specific detail, but I'm on president's staff, so I'll take this one for the team. I don't think that there's like a specific budget for sustainable purchases. So I think that if we adopt STARS and we really have good data to drive decision making, I could see this evolving out of STARS for sure. What's good about adopting sustainable practices is it often comes with cost saving at a certain point. I know the startup costs for the projects you're just talking about can be astronomical, but when you look at like water-wise solutions, energy efficiency, that comes with real cost savings a lot of times. So, but for now, I'm sorry, Carol, I'm not aware of a specific budget line that's there for sustainable purchasing.
And I think it's important to highlight too, while we are not sure of state directives, I'm not really aware of any super fund that the state of California is granting higher ed to make these transitions to abide by the lengthy policies that are coming out. Am I right about that, Megan and Larry? There's no super fund?
No, nothing that I'm aware of. We were funded from the state for some of our energy savings projects, but you have to have show an energy savings, a cost savings in the long run. So that was the way we were able to get some money for that. But no, nothing aside from that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Carol wanted to share that there's a great booth at the Orange Farmers Market on Saturdays, and you can bring your own bottles. I'm assuming for zero waste products. I have another question here, and this is for the faculty in the room, that is regarding pedagogy and how some professors are very heavy on paper usage. Is there, like, with us transitioning online, we have less of a paper trail. It's almost like it has been like a really push for paperless. I ask, so he's asking basically, how can we go paperless? Are we going paper? Is that a focus of STARS? And what do you see us like keeping this up with the paperless submissions and examination after we return to campus? So I'll have any of the profs come in on that one.
I can answer. I don't have, as Lisa said, I'll take one for the team. It's difficult to say, and this is maybe one of those areas in which we need to have more conversations also amongst ourselves, the faculty. I know that some of us are committed to it. I know that some of us are definitely moving in that direction or have moved in that direction. Just anecdotally, my own personal experience, I remember the numerous trips I would make to get things printed and make those available. I think the cumulative effect of just even not handing out a physical copy of the course syllabus really does make a difference. And I can't remember how long ago, how many years ago was that I actually printed a course syllabus. And more of my colleagues that I have noticed are doing the same thing, or I have noticed that some of my colleagues are doing the same thing. But I can't say that we have an approach or policy or an agreement, but I think that's a great point to make and something that we can take on.
I totally agree. I think many of us had already digitized most things. However, COVID and this very abrupt online transition really pushed not just the instructional side of our campus, but everything else, right? Like we were very heavy on like paper forms, and now we're needing to think about how to go paperless as the only way to really operate, right, is digitally right now. So yes, and the question was, is this something that STARS gauges? Yes. So we would be looking at we'd be looking at our waste, right, and measuring how much of that is paper and cardboard, and I'm sure we'll see big reductions as we've learned how to digitize. Okay, great. And for Imandra, she brought the point. Imandra is going to be part of the sustainability committee as well. Just got sworn in, and that's very exciting. And she's talking about wanting to bring up, toilet paper made of bamboo or recycled materials. So here's another thing with STARS. Maybe Megan can tell a little bit about how purchasing gets shaped by the STARS initiative.
Yeah, so one of the great things about STARS is that it points out existing frameworks for collecting and evaluating data against sustainability goals. So a lot of times when we say sustainable or healthier, those things can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So STARS gives us an opportunity to evaluate, do we want to prioritize sourcing? Do we want to prioritize nutrition? Do we want, what about sustainable or healthy do we really want to prioritize? And then how can we work with vendors like Sodexo, who are already under contract with the campus under particular terms, to modify their offerings so that they're still within contract, but also meet what the students' goals are. And this is where it's really important to have that student voice, and where STARS can kind of provide a framework for those requests that are actionable. So when the students come to talk to a professional in food service, there's a certain language that they speak that is easier sometimes, if you speak that same language, for them to adopt, as opposed to coming and saying like, I need, well, like we said, healthier and more sustainable food choices. To them, that could mean a whole range of things. So if you can go to them with something more targeted, like, I would like to understand how many of our current food choices are plant-based and how we could increase that percentage based on XYZ framework as suggested by ASHE's STARS. That is something that's actionable. They can go, they can dig into their databases, they can determine, do I need staffing to evaluate this? Is this something that I could partner with a faculty member and use a student internship maybe to gather data? And then once we have that data, how can I reach out to my colleagues? Is someone else already doing this, et cetera? So STARS really empowers that conversation to move more quickly toward whatever the goal is. And I know that this is definitely something that comes up frequently. And our VP of Admin and Finance, who manages that contract with Sodexo, is really accessible to have conversations about what those goals are, and is especially receptive to actionable conversations. Like, we think that this could happen without an impact necessarily to budgets, or without a major change to, supply infrastructure. If we could just incorporate, these things, could you have them evaluate this and get back to us? That's generally a really effective way to approach those kinds of things, and to use stars to leverage what other places have done to make quicker headway on your sustainability goals. Did that answer your question? Was that helpful?
Yeah, no, totally. So like in some, looking at these ideals that we have, right? We have these ideals of like increase plant-based, have more decompostable, have purchase products with recycled materials, right? We have an idea of our aspirations, right? And what STARS does, as Megan is saying, is it creates an opportunity for us to measure where we're at and how far away from those aspirations we are. Who is materializing those aspirations? What campuses can we look at that are doing this well? And that's, where this framework is going to take us to all of these ideas that we have. But if I could pull in a little bit of the AS, and Carolee, can you tell us a little bit about how the AS Committee on the Environment creates that and has created that infrastructure from the student side?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a question specifically around Sodexo and getting more healthier options, more vegan meals, just overall improving sustainability in our cafeteria. That was actually the biggest project that I was starting to work on, but unfortunately wasn't executed because of COVID. But the Sodexo that we have at Fullerton College is not the same Sodexo as every other campus. There are Sodexos that have veggie grill options. There are campuses that have those on campus. And if you look into Sodexo, not just on our campus, but who they are as a company, they do have a lot of initiatives around zero waste, around more sustainable meals, plant-based options. It's just different on each campus. And so what we had started to, or what the plan was to do, was to meet with the manager of Sodexo on campus. I forget his name, but if you are an associate student, Stephanie can definitely help you out with that. And again, like Megan was saying, having those targeted conversations of saying, hey, this Sodexo on this campus have these options. Can we implement those here? And that would be like your best start in making those improvements. Because again, we're not going to get rid of Sodexo. We have that contract with them. But if you have those specific ideas of what improvements we can make with Sodexo, that's going to be your best bet. And that's definitely doable as well.
Excellent. Student voices are extremely powerful, and this, the whole campus is here to listen. And I think an important thing that Carolee and Alejandra and Emily, what I have seen them do is long-term commitment, right? Is this follow up and follow through, and we need more. So as we are approaching the end here of the webinar, I want to invite both Emily and Alejandra to give your words forward. Like, what do you see you doing forward in a time when we are away from campus, right? How do you advise students to continue to mobilize for environmental sustainability? Emily, what do you see the future of SES in this context to be? And same to you, Alejandra, what do you see, where do you see yourself and encourage other students to continue to move on for environmental sustainability as we're away from campus? So I'll start with Emily.
So I guess what I would advise, and the advice that I would also give for myself, is just constant like learning, just to be up to date with everything that is going on and not allow that to kind of just go to the wayside, and be in constant connection, communication with those around you that have the same views. You guys could broaden each other on it, because having these conversations and discussing difficult topics is very helpful and essential. So I think as for how SES is going to continue to move forward, I definitely see us having more of these talks. It is very essential to what we are as a club, and having people's voices heard, and, you know, bringing complex issues to the table. It's just what we like to do. So continuing something like this, I guess, is very important.
Sure. And I'd like to say that, you know, during this time, since quarantine has begun, we've been at home a lot more. So that's, you know, something that I focus on is the things that I'm doing in my own home to make more sustainable choices. I'm sorry, my dog's going nuts. But aside from that, you know, during quarantine, the Black Lives Matter movement really kicked off. And with that, I think it's really unique because we're starting to learn, like, you know, social media could be, you know, it has its ups and downs. But during this time, there's been so much informational materials that we can just find on our phones. You know, you can just go on well, maybe not Facebook, but I'm seeing a lot of great resources coming out, you know, on social media. And, you know, we're home a lot more and away from campus. So something like that, you know, if you follow certain people who are educated on these matters and, you know, very passionate about, you know, it's more than just being sustainable, you know, just everything that's going on right now. It's really important. So, I mean, I'm personally off social media for now, but I think it's really important to be able to, you know, just have your healthy boundaries with that, and be able to learn from home. You know, that's pretty great that we're able to do that now.
That is such an excellent connection that you made, Alejandra. And if I could extend to that and just say, as we think about sustainability, for us to see as the underlying effort for social justice as well, all of the things we discussed, you know, lack of access to green spaces, to healthy food choices, all of those things, you know, impact Black, Indigenous, and people of color disproportionately. Studies continue to show, like even with the COVID pandemic, how environmental factors created much, much greater risk for like communities like in Texas, like the Cancer Alley, right? That already had very heavily polluted air, people there with respiratory issues, and now this pandemic, right, that attacks the lungs is going to then have disproportionate impacts in those communities. So I encourage us to align our mentality. You know, the environmental movement has done such a bad job of making it about altruism and less about survival, making it about hugging trees and not hugging the most oppressed among us, right? And I think creating that connection like you just did, Alejandra, you know, to learn and keep growing is so important. For all of the students still here with us, I want to thank you very much for opening your mind, and everyone that's here with us, but specifically the students that are looking to engage and connect with folks like Carolee, Emily, Alejandra, Chad, right? And many, many, many others. Please email SES and we can, you know, depending on your interest, create an online community, an online forum like this, where you can come in and get to meet folks with the same interests as you. Does anyone have any other final thoughts to share? All right, so we are wrapping up on the clock here. We thank you very much, all of our wonderful panelists. I am so proud to share space with you. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Eleni.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, thank you so much.
Thank you.